Las Vegas, a city like none other, a city with many nicknames: Sin City, Glitter Gulch, Lost Wages, the Diamond in the Desert. The one thing Vegas has more of than nicknames is stories. Anyone who's visited the city has a few of their own. But this is a film about four men raised in Las Vegas in the 50s, breaking into the mob-run casinos in the 70s, and now at the end of their careers, they're ready to share their true stories. They are the Vegas Knights.
This town was fantastic back then. As a kid, everything, it was open, wide open. It had plenty of room to run and play, and you know, it was all desert and you had nobody to bother you. It was a total different town compared to now. You had the mountains, the lakes.
When I went away to school and people found out we were from Las Vegas, they actually thought we lived somewhere else and commuted to Vegas. They didn't believe that we had a population here, that it was just the casinos. People didn't think of Vegas as being a city with families and a community. But it was a good place to live. It was nice here. I can remember the 50s just like it was yesterday. I mean, I have one of those memories, and I remember how nice the 50s were. Nobody locked their car doors. For having what it did with the casinos and the gambling and the mob and everything else, it was a pretty safe place to be too.
As a kid, my dad was fascinated with Las Vegas. He would come here for the summers, 2-3 weeks, and he just was amazed that they had these hotels in the middle of all this desert, and it just fascinated him. So when he married my mom, he said they were just coming on a honeymoon, and of course, you know, he blindsided my mom and they never went back, and my mom cried for a whole year because she was a country girl.
5 kids, brand new Ford LTD, and in '65 we came to Las Vegas. My dad was always a businessman. Then when I was about 13, got into the pizza places, the Italian restaurants, and the whole family worked in there, and I'm the only one that really stuck with them. I stayed in the pizza business till I was probably 23 or so.
When I was younger, I was working in a Savoy room at a young age. At 15 and a half, my father got me a job. He was working at the Dunes at the time from 1959 to '73. And when I became old enough, he got me a job as a busboy at the Savoy Room in the Dunes Hotel, which was actually a very famous coffee shop. And they had 2 shows, Casino de Paris featuring Lean Renault, and these were French revues, Frederick Apgar, and then they had Viva la Girls, it was a lounge show. And between the 2, they must have had about 80 or 90 showgirls, and they were from everywhere, Belgium, France, England, you name it, they were from everywhere. And of course, these girls, they all wanted to get high. And being that I was young and I had connections, I'd bring them a joint, I'd let them sample some stuff and they'd buy, and then I'd get invited to some of their little parties and things like that, and I'd get to know them. you know, and they were so tall and I was so short, but somehow we made it work.
I got out of the service early. My dad had a heart attack, massive heart attack, and I was over in Vietnam. And they had called me and told me to come home, that he's not going to make it. So I flew home, and he did make it. I stayed with him there at the house with my brother and his wife. They started teaching me craps, and I started learning there at the house how to deal the game and everything. And I went and opened up the California Hotel. In '75 is when that opened.
I tried college. I also had been a DJ for a couple of years, and I had tried some other things. You know, I tried to be a drug dealer. I actually tried to be a gigolo, and all of those things failed miserably. You know, I kicked myself, but it was all an experience, and that's what life is. So my dad says, if, you know, none of these other things are panning out for you, why don't you get into gaming? So 6 months before my 21st birthday, my dad got a layout. He gave me the basics, and then I broke in 1973 at the Fremont Hotel, and I became a shill. They put you on graveyard. I got $13.80 to be a shill. My dad had a friend there named Tony Grazzi. He's known because he was missing 2 fingers, but he still was a great crap dealer.
1973. I was going to school, UNLV. I was going to be a veterinarian. And I was working for my father, and I got into a fight with him. And I quit and went to dealer school. Boy, I showed him. And that was it. I started working, I went and got a job. I was very lucky because I started out at the Silver Slipper. I worked there for 3 months. I went to the Flamingo, worked there for 9 months. And then I got the best job in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace, St. Patrick's Day, 1975.
I didn't go to school. I almost did, but I got a job as a shield down at the Four Queens, and they taught you right on the game. You would, they give you $10, and you put it in front of you. You put $1 on the pass line, and you shot the dice until you got a game going. One time I got a game going. It was funny as hell, and I didn't know that much about the game, and I shot up like a 20-minute hand, and that's, you know, people started making money, and the shield is shooting the dice, and one of the players wanted to give me a tip, so I said, great, give me $5. Oh, now, this is my first day, and I said, he said, put it where you want it, kid, and I put it on Big Red. I knew that was the most common roll. Next roll, 7 out. Game went crazy. The boss says, good job, kid, you know. But all the crap dealers can relate to that, you know. I only worked 6 months downtown, and then I got a job at the Las Vegas Hilton, which was a pretty good job, table for table. You could make a big score. And man, you might make $500. You go out and have a good time. The town was doing good. We had plenty of money in our pockets. You know, you would go out to dinner and just have a blast.
If you were a baccarat dealer in Las Vegas, number one, you wore a tuxedo. So when you went out after work, everybody knew what you did for a living. They knew you made a lot of money. And it mattered which place you worked at, but really the biggest deal was just being a baccarat dealer. You had carte blanche when it came to going out drinking and eating and women. It was just a lot of fun. Everybody, there was a lot of camaraderie. Everybody was friends. You knew everybody in town. It was fun to go out. We made good money. The cost of living wasn't very much back then either. We didn't pay taxes. Now, there's nothing good about it. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's not the same. Now it's a job. Back then it was more than that.
And the mob, it was real simple. You didn't steal. They let you make money, but don't get too greedy. They could be greedy, but not you. And you just had to, and keep your mouth shut. Whatever you saw that might be a little bit borderline, maybe not so honest or whatever, you just kept your mouth shut. You looked the other way and hoped that there wasn't a black cloud that stayed there too long and it moved on.
To me, that's all we knew. That's all I knew. That's what I was raised up in, and I miss it. It was fun.
And if you listen to some people say that we allowed them to be here. They took good care of us as long as you didn't steal.
Out there at the lake, my mom was a cook out there, so I lived out there during the summers when she was cooking and everything. And the owners would put us to work out there as kids. We had to do certain things around the boat dock, hooking docks or hooking the cables up underneath the docks, or go scrape off the bottom of a boat, something like that. We were always had something to do every day out there, which was good for us. A lot of the mob that I would know would come in and ask me to clean their fish. We had a couple of particular people that would come in, and he would call me, "Hey kid, come here, clean my fish." And he'd hand me an ice chest, which I would go down the dock with, and I knew there was a couple of beers in there. They always had beer in there. And I'd get walking down the dock, and then they'd always yell at me, "Don't drink my beer." And okay, we'd go down there and clean the fish, but we'd get down there and we'd pop a beer. He knew what we was doing. We'd take a few sips of it and giggle and laugh. But we cleaned a lot of fish for a lot of them mobsters out there. And they were good, because they would always pay you. They'd give you a fin or whatever, but they always smoked them big cigars and the sunshades. I guess that was the big thing back then. That's what I really remember. They would get off their boat, go into there and have a beer inside. And then when they come out, their fish is all clean. They give you the money and off they went. My dad, my uncles, my brother was all in the business. So naturally, I followed with them. I had to do a year downtown. I think everybody had to do a year downtown back then. And after there, I went right out to the Aladdin. Tried to get a job there. I asked the gentleman there, who was casino manager, for a job, and he told me to get out of his effing hotel. And I told him, I said, "Well, that's not what you told me when I cleaned your fish for you." And he stopped and he looked at me. He had big dark sunshades and a great big old cigar and a drink in his hand. And he says, "Are you that little Waldie kid?" I said, "The same one." "Yes, sir." "That little freckle-faced kid?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, kid, you start Monday night, but don't ever steal from me."
My grandfather was a very successful businessman. He had a trucking line. He hauled mostly building materials, bricks, whatnot. He had probably 10 or 12 trucks. They were heavy-duty trucks, a lot of moving. And just to put it quick, someone made him an offer he couldn't refuse. He made a run from Pennsylvania to Chicago, and it was apparently to the Al Capone Association. He left Pennsylvania and he never made it to Chicago. He was reprehended by feds and he was arrested. He was prosecuted and he went to prison for 3 years. So he did time for the Capone people. And it was, just those stories that I've heard growing up. Spilatro was a gangster guy that had these guys that probably worked for him. They were called the Hole in the Wall Gang because they robbed houses. And my uncle was a bookie. I actually went to his house with my brother-in-law to bring him a bunch of ribs that my father-in-law made. And we walked in the house, I put them on the table, and his wife was, she couldn't cook or nothing. She goes, "I can't cut those." And I said, "I'll cut them for you, Uncle John." So I'm sitting there cutting the ribs up. There's a knock at the door, And I did notice on the coffee table that there was a stack of $100 bills like this. Two guys come in, and one guy walks in and says, "Hello, Johnny." Another guy stands by the door, and I kind of noticed that he was like looking around. He's looking down the hall, looking where the bedrooms are, looking where this is at. And apparently he had won some money from Uncle John, and he got paid. They left, and a couple days later, he had a big hole in the side of his house. That's what they did. They just knocked the stucco in, went right into the room where, you know, took all her minks. They took a safe, and they just made a hole right through the wall. And they hit a lot of people here in town.
One of my favorite stories involves a very large player at Caesar's Palace at the time, and his name was Jimmy, and he was losing about $1.5 million. Of course, he had his own private crap table, and he's losing $1.5 million, and he says, I got to stop for a while. I got to do something. So he decided to go get a shoe shine. And at that time, in all the hotels, they had a person that would shine your shoes and whatever else you needed in there. So Jimmy's gone about 20 minutes, and the next thing you know, here comes Jimmy with the shoe shine attendant. He's all nervous and scared. He probably hasn't left his station in probably a year. So he comes to the crap table, and Jimmy says, "Hand him the dice." And he says, "Are you sure it's all right I can shoot the dice?" He goes, "You can do anything, and I want you to shoot the dice." So he says, "Okay, I'll shoot the dice." He shoots the dice for about 16 minutes. So Jimmy's starting to get a little bit of money back, and all the extra money, all the loose change, which adds up substantially after the smoke clears, after the hand rolls. So for about 16 to 18 minutes, Jimmy gets back almost $500,000. And then the dice seven out, and Sweet Pea had no idea what he just did. He'd just rolling the dice, and he'd look at Jimmy and roll the dice, look at Jimmy, and Jimmy would smile and say, "Keep it up, Sweet Pea, keep it up." So when they colored Sweet Pea's money up, Jimmy said, "This is for you." And he goes, "All that's for me? What do I do with it?" He goes, "Well, take it to the cage over there and get yourself some money." He goes, "Well, I don't know if they're going to let me do that." He goes, so one of Jimmy's guys took him over there, and he ended up cashing out $32,000. Sweet Pea, his eyes got so big, it was unbelievable. He said, $32,000? Oh my God. Well, needless to say, Sweet Pea was MIA for the next week. He called out sick every day for a whole week.
When I first got into the business, my uncle was the sheriff. And because of the people that used to come here, I got to know quite a few of these guys, and some of them were actual hitmen. They were nice guys, they didn't bother anybody, they came and gambled, and they knew that they had to be on their best behavior or they'd get run out of town. But there was a few times when a couple guys found out who I was. In those days, it seems like I remember we had our full name on our name tag, so they would look at my name badge and they'd ask me if I was related to the sheriff, and I'd say yes. And they'd get upset and they would leave. They'd change their money up and they'd run, take off running and just get upset and leave. 30 minutes later, they'd come back and they'd come sit down next to me and they'd say, "I hated your uncle. I hated him. He wouldn't let me in town. He'd make me get back on airplanes. I hated him, but I loved him." So that happened a few times. It scared me at first, and then I kind of got used to it, so it wasn't such a bad. And they were good guys. They weren't bad guys. They were just trying to have a good time.
I had a floor man and a box man behind the game. And we had a fill come into the game. Now, what a fill is when you get low on chips, you have security guard will bring out more chips to replenish what you've went through on the game. So you have to add more chips to the bankroll to pay out. They had brought a $100,000 fill, but there was only 50,000 in chips there. There wasn't enough. And I turned and I told the floor man, I says, "You're missing 50,000. The slip says 100, there's only 50,000 there." And he told me, he said, "You just watch your F&N. I said, "Yes, sir." And I turned around and I went ahead and dealt the game and everything else and forgot about it. went on home. And the next day when I came in, a couple of people says, "Did you hear what happened to the floor man and the box man?" I said, "No. Why? What happened?" He said, "They found them both dead out there in their car." Right or wrong, whatever happened, happened. That's one thing you don't do, you don't steal. We were told that in the beginning, do not ever steal from me.
There was a couple murders. One of them one night in the parking lot of Caesar's Palace, supposedly mob related. But yeah, I wouldn't even know how to address that.
The story is that Marty Buccieri, a casino boss at Caesar's Palace, was the one who introduced Alan Glick to his connections with the Chicago mob. And it was the Chicago mob that helped Alan Glick and Argent Corporation get the loan from the Teamsters Union pension to purchase the Stardust Hotel in 1974. Marty Buccieri thought he was owed a finder's fee for connecting Glick with the Teamsters. Marty went to Glick's office and demanded somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 for his part in the sale. Marty told Glick that he had 1 week to make good. A week later, Marty Buccieri was found in his car in the parking lot of Caesar's Palace. He'd been shot dead. A small-time Las Vegas hood named Wayne Horton was charged with the murder.
I tried cocaine when I was younger, and it would make me sick. So I went to my doctor and I wanted to know, listen, every time I snort cocaine, it makes me sick. Is there something you can do so it doesn't make me sick, so I can snort the cocaine? He says, you came here to see me to help you, to find something to help you to snort cocaine. I go, yeah, you're a doctor, aren't you?
And there was always somebody holding a party at their house. You know, as soon as you walked in, I mean, everything was laid out there.
Yep.
So they always had the pool or the spa or whatever going on, and that's just the way it was. That's
Cocaine
the way
on the
this town
tables,
was.
joints.
Cocaine, you had lewd, you had, speed,
It was just a lot of fun.
You know, we sit there and laugh and joke on a crap table. We have a fun time all day long.
I was hired for the job, and I came in, I was standing on the game. We got dice is going. Here come a gentleman out of the baccarat room, come walking toward the game, and all I seen was money come flying in the air. And the dice were already landing over here. I called no bet, and 7 out hit, and the guy started screaming. I wanted that, behind all the numbers and everything, and he's screaming real loud. So the casino manager come over, and he said, get out of the game. He says, you're fired. I said, what am I fired for? He said, how can you call no bet on somebody when you don't know what he wants? And I just stood there and I looked at him because it didn't make no sense to me. And I told him, well, just stick it up your keister is all I can tell you. I don't need this job. And then he realized who he was talking to at the time, because he's the one that hired me. And he says, come on up to the bar, have a beer with me. So I went up and I was sitting there, and he was explaining to me how I should have never called no bet on this guy and all this stuff. And I told him, I said, but that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. We're to protect the game. And that's what I did. And finally he understood what I was talking about, and he says, well, why are you drinking on the job? Get back on the game where you're supposed to be. So I was hired right back. I went back in, got back on the game, and the rest is history.
I saw some strange things happen because of my name. I was out drinking one night, and I was at the Klondike Inn. My uncle, I don't even know if I should say that. My uncle was tending bar, and he told me there was a couple girls in there that would like to party with me. So we ended up going, you know, I can't believe I'm telling this story, going to this room, and one of them found out who I was and got panicked. The next thing I know, there's a knock at the door, and their pimp comes in. Evidently they were hookers, and I didn't know it. I wasn't being charged or anything. We were just gonna have a little party. And the one girl was really freaking out, and she kept telling them, when the pimp come in, he started giving me some trouble about, you know, you're gonna take care of him. I said, hey, just turn around and leave. And she goes, he's the sheriff's nephew. And he panicked, ran into the bathroom, and jumped out the window from the second floor. Don't know what happened to him. I didn't even go look for him. And the other girl took off running, and that wasn't my finest moment. Please Anyway.
One of my favorite stories involves an actor that used to be on a show, and his name was Don. And Don was shooting the dice, and he started to have a little bit to drink, and he would get even funnier. He had this unusual voice. He'd go, I've got to roll a hard 6 now. And he would emphasize certain words, and it was so funny. And he was well known because he had a television show. And so he's rolling the dice, and I kept telling him, I said, put all your loose change on that hard 6. And he'd been rolling for maybe like about 10 minutes. So he's putting all his loose change on the hard 6, and the hard 6 pays 10 for 1. And all his loose change were dollars, nickels, couple of quarters, and I was stacking it up. I didn't change it up to make it smaller. I was making it higher. And he's saying, boy, that thing's really growing. I go, well, let's keep it going until the FAA calls. When it's too high for the planes to fly over, we'll knock it down, Don, okay? So he's rolling, then he stops. He goes, Danny, do you think I should put some more money on the hard 6? I says, absolutely, Don, but before you do that, I said, you need to call Agent 99 and ask her if the hard 6 is really gonna hit. So he takes his shoe off, and he acts like it's a shoe phone. Agent 99, I'm here at Caesar's Palace, undercover, and preventing chaos from taking my money. He's going into this spiel, and there's a big crowd around, and they're loving it. And he says, so I should put some more money on the hard 6. My dealer, Danny, says I should. All right, so he throws in $100 and a few change. I stack it up, and he says, I'm gonna hit this. Well, he puts his shoe back down on the table, not on his foot, on the table. I want you to listen to this, 99. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Within 2 rolls, the hard 6 hits. There's 50 people around. The crowd goes wild. He picks up the shoe. He tells 99, I did it. And then he throws the shoe in the air. It hits somebody in the head. And it just all pandemonium. And I called that hard 6, and the crowd just went wild. Wild. They were all clapping, and it was just an unbelievable moment. Unbelievable. And that was just one of the many moments. There was many.
There's a somewhat famous story about the bubbles. My uncle, Larry, evidently bought $27 worth of Mr. Bubble and dumped it in the fountains at Caesar's Palace. And it created so much bubbles that it went all the way across the strip and through the front door of the Flamingo. Pretty famous story. Yeah, that was, those were the kind of things that used to happen here. And nobody thought anything of it.
Fun.
Fun, exciting.
I try to do it as often as possible.
I do too.
No idea what it is.
You're a baccarat dealer. How could you know?
Where a girl with a low top will come up to the one end of the game, and the stick man will give her the dice real short where she has to bend way over to pick up the dice.
See, I always thought it was for the guys on the outside of the table.
Well, guys on the outside could see
everybody
it too.
watches it.
It's for both ways. And
Yeah, but we don't have the same view.
no, you have a better view than we do at times.
Half the people know about it now. All the husbands know it. They say, you know, you're short sticking my wife, you know.
Absolutely. It's not
Yeah.
exclusionary by any means.
No.
Everyone is invited to participate, and it's actually a group sport.
But every now and then you will get somebody that's that's never done it before.
You leave it on the 12 in the field.
Yeah,
Got a nice
and they
long
have
reach.
to reach, and then everybody's goo-goo-eyed.
You're quite the hustler. You got me stuck on you, but your love was broken, and baby had me.
Shooter.
Had many lovers. You were my only, and now I see that, babe, I ain't buying the game. And now you talk the talk, walk the walk, reaching the truth. Your game is fixed, and girls are stuck on you, but I don't buy it. I ain't sold, not invested no more.
We're the last group of dealers that, like I said before, that dealt with the guys that worked for the mob guys in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. We were the last contact that they had before they retired or they died of natural causes or unnatural, and we picked up where they left off. And we're that last generation that knew those guys from before and how gaming really was when baccarat dealers used to use money instead of chips, and it used to be so pretty. I remember when I was 16 and a busboy, and I was working at the dunes, and I was watching the baccarat dealers at the dunes, and these guys, they would float that money up and it would fly and it would land so beautifully. I was like mesmerized how those guys, and they were all good. It wasn't like one was good, they were all good, and they could just, and they were like those machines that counts the money, only better.
Right.
And they would go like that, and they would throw the money, and it would land beautifully. It
They
was,
wax the bills.
oh, it was so neat.
Soap?
It
I knew
was
you did
so
soap.
neat. It was so neat. And to see a 21 dealer that actually knew how to deal 21, he would have the deck, and the cards would come out like automatic, and they would land exactly where the player is. Boom, boom, like a machine. So beautiful, and I mean, even the people would be mesmerized where the card would land and the guy could go like that. And the crap dealers, they were clerks. They deal so good using both hands and dealing and talking and making money. And
Protect
those
the game.
things are lost.
I love these guys.
I love you too.
Hey, Mom.
I love you, man, too.
Said we're the last.
Even though you guys are all
last of them
Caucasian.
all.
I cannot help it. I'm pulling and I'm left all astray. your honesty has me guessing, where do you come? And you're taking me down so far below. Hey, 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 now your love is the killer. Find myself 600 ground. And your love is the dealer. Help me so I may not drown. But you feed me bullshit that seems so sweet and fresh all the same. Yeah, but you're just a liar. You don't in circles, then play my game. But your honesty has me guessing, where do you come? And you're taking